Hello, my name is Ken Moore with Global View Investment Advisors, and I wanted to talk today about a rule that will take effect unless it's somehow gotten away with in April of next year. And I feel like it's the most important advisory regulation in history. And based on international precedent, it could cause 1/3 of advisors to leave the industry. So the rule uh, is coming about because the current state of advice is very confusing. Okay, so you have, on the one hand, you have, um, excuse me here for a second, you have registered representatives who are paid a commission for selling investment products. They're regulated through FINRA. You have investment advisors like us who are paid a fee for advising clients on planning investment. They're regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. And you have insurance agents who are paid a commission for selling insurance, and they're regulated by the state insurance commissioner. So all three of these fit the definition of fee-based. As long as you can be paid a fee, then you're fee-based. But you could also be a registered representative receiving commissions, and your employer could get a share of revenue for selling investment products. You might also have an insurance license, so you can get paid a commission for selling insurance. Only a pure level fee-only advisor uh, can say that when they're not paid commissions, don't get share of revenue, and do not get commissions for selling insurance. So if anyone has an insurance license, then they're not a pure level fee player. They have a conflict of interest in selling insurance. Similarly, any advisor, and this includes all the advisors who work for the major firms, who has a Series 7, Series 6 license may be paid a commission for selling investment products. His employer may be paid a share of the revenue generated through the mutual funds and the other things that are sold. So only the only person who doesn't have a conflict of interest really is an investment advisor. Now, it's not even true that they don't have a conflict of interest. They have a conflict of interest. Their conflict of interest is that they uh, are compensated more by managing more of the client's money. So, you have to be very careful. In my opinion, as a fiduciary, we have to be careful that the action a client is taking, which will result in us getting their investment assets, is one where we believe, as fiduciaries, as a prudent man, that they're better suited to have the money with us than with themselves or through some other action. And for instance, I have a client online here, and you don't need to make any comment on this if you don't care to, but his choice was as to whether he should buy um, an interest in a retirement home where more money would come away from us. So I went through very carefully to talk about the details of that. So let me move on forward here. Um, so the point is that you need to manage this conflict of interest. Now, again, fee-only advisor gets paid by his client and only by his client, period, end of story. But this term can be used by folks who are registered investment advisors and who are also insurance agents, and is used at times. If they're not a CFP, there's no one who should tell you that you can't use this term. In fact, there are a number of people who use the term because they're registered investment advisors, but they also sell insurance. We've seen what I consider to be heinous uh, actions taken where half of a client's money might be put into an index annuity that, based on the historical rationale for creating the annuities and returns, will generate a return of somewhere to 2 to 3% per year. And the money's locked up for 10 to 13 years. So I find that criminal. Everyone else is basically anybody who works for a publicly traded firm. Their fiduciary loyalty is to their employer before it is to themselves. It is anybody who gets commissions for trading and investing from the spread. It is anybody who can be paid share of revenue inside of an insurance policy. A greater share might mean that a sub account gets put into an annuity. I can document this. I can show you the details. It could be that you get money from investment activities, or it could be mutual funds that you get paid a share of the revenue that is in those funds. So your firm then, because they're paid a share of those revenue from those funds, that some might be higher than others, are predisposed to use those funds which pay them better and might not be in the best interest of the client. So the rationale for the new rule is that there are ongoing revenue sharing arrangements, including 12b1 fees, that advisors get paid, and it creates a financial incentive to direct clients to funds with higher revenue sharing payments. So I took this information from the effects of conflicted investment advice on retirement savings from the White House Council on Economic Advisors, a paper published February 2015. And it's the reason why we have a new rule. There are front-end loads, back-end loads. Advisors get sales targets and payouts. And this is everyone. This is, and I'm not going to point fingers to anybody, but it's all of the retail investment shops. They're not paid commissions, but they're paid more if they bring in more money to the firm. They're paid more if they put the clients into programs where they can then get a fee. They're paid more if they send business to their proprietary fixed income desk. And there are a number of other ways that there are all kinds of conflicts of interest. And then there are all kinds of variable commissions for selling this or that, upfront commissions. There are all these conflicts of interest. Is the reason for the rule. The findings of the study are that advisors should always act we know that from an intellectual perspective, if advisors are acting in the client's best interest, it's going to be better for them. But there are other things that are likely to happen. The annuity salesman actions, the radio talk show host, would be made criminal. And the basic finding is that this conflicted advice is costing investors or clients 1% of a year, and could reduce the ability to live in their retirement funds by 5 years. They'd have 5 years less to retire. So it's a huge. They figure that there's about almost $2 trillion in IRS assets invested in conflicted advice products like annuities and revenue sharing funds and commissionable funds, et cetera. And it's equivalent. They made the analogy in this study that it's like taking $100,000 and throwing $12,000 away when you put it into a conflicted advice program. So the new rule is a game changer. It's going to cover all IRAs, retirement plan assets. It starts April 10th of next year. It will forbid all advisors, insurance agents, brokerage firms to receive commissions and conflicted advice compensation from consumers without very strict disclosure. It expands the definition of a fiduciary, prohibits certain commissionable conflicted interest transaction, allows beneficiaries to sue. So the beneficiary of the IRA, the 401k, allows class action lawsuits. 2 years ago, or actually in 2012, when it was implemented in early 2013, there was a similar program in the United Kingdom. This program was studied by the United Kingdom Financial Services Authority beginning in 2006. They found that less than 1/2 of individuals understood the cost of the commissions passed to them. Almost 1/3 of the people believed the commission advice was free. And so the UK banned sales of commission products. And a similar rule was passed in Australia at the same time. What happened? The study found that eliminating commissions has reduced investment bias, improving the quality of advice. Advisors negotiated lower costs for their clients from their investment products. And then there was a large exit of advisors. Some studies indicate 1/3 of advisors left the business, those who were focused on commissions, and it made it unprofitable to deal with smaller clients. So what will this conflicted advice providers do to keep commissions and hidden fees? Well, they're going to lobby. So the brokerage firms and insurance companies, Securities Industry Financial Marketing Association is a group in which every brokerage firm, you've got every company that can get paid commissions is a member of this authority. So it's 1,000. It's a very, very high number. The American Council of Life Insurance and the Chambers of Commerce. These are, the first two in particular are huge lobbying. They spend enormous amounts of money trying to persuade congressmen and presidential candidates to take actions in their interest. and those same lobbyists are filing suits. Well, there was a congressional impetus to get rid of this rule, and it passed, and Obama vetoed this congressional resolution, which I think was the right thing for him to do in this case. So let's just look at this for a second. So why do you think, and I'm a capitalist, there's nothing against profitability. I think that I worked for Wall Street. I worked for American International Group at their 72 Wall Street location. I know how insurance companies make money, and I can tell you that, that they make money by holding other people's money for a long time, mainly. But if you look at the skyline of any major city, you're going to see a building. This is New York Life, and I'm not pointing at New York Life as being any different than any other insurance company, life insurance company, but you're going to see it's a prominent feature of the skyline in every major city. So we have banks, brokerage firms, and insurance companies make money by holding on to other people's money. They're protected by regulations and the incumbent advantage. And this spending, this lobbying spending, 2015 was 3.2 billion. We see that the largest spender, according to OpenSecrets.org, which tracks the money spent by lobbyists, was finance, insurance, and real estate. The single largest sector, spending to both Democrats and Republicans. And if we look at this another way, we can look at the actual companies, but they have a huge incentive to attract assets because they make investment income. Because in the case of the insurance companies, basically you pay premiums to them. They keep those premiums for a long time, and on those premiums they're going to make more than they have to pay you back. That's the largest source of income for insurance companies. It's on investment income. The second source of income, for which most insurance companies don't even receive any profits, is underwriting income. So if a company, when I was at AIG and I was looking at companies for AIG to buy, we would look for companies that made money on their underwriting. Because if you can make money on your underwriting, well, it's pretty easy for you to make money on the investments too. So we see who these guys are. I'm not pointing fingers. And then we have the biggest lobbyists in the banking are the American Bankers Association. Then we have the two of the largest four up here, and then we can see there are other ones right down not far below, J.P. Morgan and Bank of America. Those are the four banks which comprise about 80% of total banking in the country: Citigroup, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and Chase, J.P. Morgan Chase. And then we see who is it that's the biggest spender of the lobbyists: the Securities Industry Financial Marketing Association, SIFMA, which is the company or the lobbying group to which all the brokerage firms are members. Then we have Goldman Sachs, the Investment Company Institute, and some others. And you see, by the way, that Vanguard's not that far down the track here. Again, I'm not pointing fingers. Interestingly, one of the other firms we work with is not on the list. Expansion of what does the rule do? The rule makes anybody who talks to any investor who has money in a 401k or an IRA a fiduciary. So talked about FINRA regulating registered representatives. It's more than that. We talked about the SEC regulating investment advisors. It's more than that. It's anybody. It's an investor at a cocktail party telling his buddy to roll his 401k over to Vanguard, or it's an accountant telling his client to roll his 401k over when the client asks, should I roll it over? So it's a very, very wide, broad definition. Anybody who makes investment recommendations, including the recommendation to roll over, transfer, distribute, or to which investments to pick. It has nothing to do with license. You might pick anyone. If it wasn't a recommendation, then why did you say it? And I put this chart in here because it was a chart we used at a recent continuing professional education workshop for accountants, and I wanted them to understand the enormity of this rule. The current practice will be substantially curtailed. No commissions, no revenue share, no 12B1, no platform fees, no payments from custodian, unless there is a best interest contract exemption. And this is the rule. I think is going to stay. We'll see. The next president can maybe have an influence here, but after it's already passed, again, I'm not a legislator. I don't know how you undo something like this, but The point is that there are going to be best interest contract exemptions, and I'm sure that all of these brokerage firms, banks, insurance companies are going to find a way to get a nice best interest contract exemption. And level fee fiduciaries like us are exempted largely. In other words, everybody must have a duty of loyalty and must act like a prudent man, as an outside prudent man. Will this affect Dave Ramsey, Tony Robbins, etc.? Nah, they could continue doing what they are. Although Dave Ramsey receives substantial payment from his endorsed local network providers monthly. And for that payment, he gives a testimony, which is illegal. I'm not allowed to receive testimonials. In the SEC, we don't do testimonials. FINRA allows it. So he can tell you that you should move your money to one of his brokers who pays him a monthly fee, and then they'll put you in a commission product, a conflicted product. So I don't know. I think that could be somehow affected. If he's seen as an entertainer, it's not affected. And Tony Robbins, it's potential that he could somehow be affected also, because he receives payment, and in return for the payment, he pushes his listeners in a certain direction. So what's an example of a prohibited transaction? Right now, we have the radio talk show hosts on conservative talk show radio in particular, who hold seminars. They tell their client, we can keep you from losing any money. You just put it in this index annuity, we guarantee you're going to get your money back. What they're doing is they're selling flood insurance to someone with a mountaintop home. If you're talking 10 to 13 years, there's never been a period where 60% stock market, 40% bonds hasn't made money. So they're guaranteed you can have your money back. They don't tell you the advisor is getting a 10% commission or more. And the client has 10 days to read the contract, or you're locked into a product that's got a CD like return for 13 years. Now, if this advisor holds a seminar, he can tell you to do this, but he's got to prove and document, or he will next year, assuming this all passes, a best interest contract exemption, that the policy is in the best interest of the client. The recommendation is prudent. The recommendation is in the best economic interest, and that all conditions of prohibited transaction exemption are satisfied. So it's going to be a high hurdle. So what do you see? Last year's marketing budget, maybe the next year's marketing budget for these guys who are doing index annuities has been doubled. They're going to be doing these seminars everywhere, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, etc. You go out and you get a free dinner. So if you know what's going on and you want a free dinner, maybe this is a good chance for you to do it. But be aware of what's going on, because they might not be in business next year. So how does this affect you? Any suggestion to roll over assets can cause you to be a fiduciary, and you can be sued for any recommendation you made by the person you gave the recommendation to, their beneficiary, or a group of people who got the recommendation. So pure level fee advisors like us are exempted from the best interest contract exemption, but we are fiduciaries when we discuss rollover or transfer of retirement assets. So part of that is that we're going to get paid. If you have your money in a 401k, we're not getting paid. If you move it over to an IRA with us, then we do get paid. When we get paid, there's a conflict of interest in us getting paid versus not getting paid. So the way that we do this, we show that it's suitable. We feel that because of the risk mitigation that we will put on the portfolio, that it makes a lot of sense. And there are also a number of things we do with financial planning. So we encourage everybody to talk to others about this and educate them on the choices. And so you guys know the choice. If you've already retired, you can leave it in a plan, you can transfer it, you can roll it in an IRA, you can take a taxable distribution. Nobody wants to do that. You have to, if we do advice, and it has to be unbiased. But when we make a recommendation, we have the duty to investigate, to discuss the expenses and fees, the range of investment services, and distribution flexibility. Services, helping you determine when to take Social Security, go into what retirement home and when, how to structure your estate. Do you need a revocable trust? Does it make sense to have a generation skipping trust for the fee, etc.? So, what we do then is we meet for education. Anybody who's interested in learning more, who wants to roll over their 401k, or who has money they're not happy with the advisor, or they think they're in a conflicted interest situation, we will meet with them for one time, no fees, to discuss things. If we want to meet twice, this is our process now. We will review everything. We're going to do some work. I've got paraplanners here. We're hiring new people. We've got an attorney coming on board in July. We're about to make that announcement. We have a new paraplanner who joined us a couple months ago. We're doing a lot of work in the background. So when we see a prospective client, we want to make sure that we truly understand what their goals are and have some type of a roadmap. We'll put together a basic plan summary. And our charge for that is $485 for the 2 meetings, so that the prospective client knows they're going to get something from us, and then they are not necessarily forced to use us as their investment provider. Maybe they want to keep it in their 401k, for instance, and keep those big funds that are there. So I wanted to just say, we know that investors need help. The last 10 years in the stock market, 20 years rather, the stock market made 10% per year for the 20 years. The average guy in the market, based on his buys and sells as they occurred, weighted for everybody, was 5%. Bonds made 6, and the average fixed income investor did worse, did substantially worse. So we know this happened. We know it happened because the market's volatile. So we had October 2008, the market was down 17%. Your average Joe's return, based on the cash flows that occurred when he bought and sold, was minus 24. We look at October of 87, 21 to 27. March of 2000 was a great month, but the average Joe didn't participate in it. So it's almost all when we have the most acute underperformance occurs largely when there's a big move in the market, and people are either they chase it or they run away from it. So we see that it happen over and over and over. And the reason why it happens is because we're human beings. Human beings are not computers. We have this reptile brain. We have this hind brain where we act based on our emotions, and we do not act based on logical thinking. We know this. Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Prize for proving it. He wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And in that book, he says that we react with what he calls system 1, which is the instinctive reaction, instead of system 2, which is the logical reaction. So, the politicians using system 2 to convince folks to do things generally haven't been successful. It's been the system 1 guys who appeal to the baser emotions who win these things. Anyway, not only human beings irrational, they're perfectly predictably irrational. That's a quote from Daniel Kahneman. And so, wrap this part of it up. I wanted to say that the major studies confirm advisors add value. Vanguard says it's 3% per year, that 1.5% of that comes from coaching. Morningstar says it's 1.6% per year from structuring withdrawals and selecting where to invest. They ignore the coaching element, which I think is substantial. And there's another source that says it's 3%. So what I'm going to do here is just I'm going to finish this up here. No market talk today, just this same Department of Labor Fiduciary Standard. And does anybody have any questions? And if you don't have any questions, I can just wrap it up and stay on here for a minute or two if anybody has some questions and they don't want to be recorded. So thank you very much for being here today. And please contact us, Ken at globalviewinb.com, if you'd like to learn